Hello, Patriots, and welcome again to Patriot Point, where we give you the news that the mainstream media doesn't necessarily tell you about, because there's a lot of things they don't want you to know about, and that's something that we're covering this week in two great big news stories. The first one, a few weeks ago I said that all of Andy Beshear's mandates are going before the court to find out if they are legal or not. And then I would report to you what that court case decided, whether it was in our favor or in the governor's favor, either way. Well, that court case came out this week, and guess what? Every single thing Andy Beshear has ever done has been declared illegal officially by the courts. I thought we were going to win this case. I thought perhaps, though, there'll be some factors that Andy Beshear will probably get, but we'll get most of them. Well, I'm here to tell you that this ruling came down officially, that the court has said everything Andy's ever done is illegal. Let me read for you now what the court actually ruled. These are the words of the official ruling. Quote, all actions taken by Andy Beshear and all emergency orders imposed are unconstitutional, void, and without any legal effect. Sweet vindication. Absolutely everything illegal, unconstitutional, void, and without any legal effect. If your business is right now suffering because Andy Beshear said you had to wear a mask, nobody in the entire state has to wear one anymore, regardless if you had the vaccine or if you haven't. If he has said your business has to be limited on how many people can be in there, that has been ruled illegal. Pack the place out tonight and celebrate. Pass out these little horns and I might show it myself. Andy Beshear has been ruled against on everything. It says repeatedly, all things he has done, none of them are legal, all without any effect at all right now. This is a tremendous ruling. I didn't think we were going to get absolutely everything. Now, this is not the only court case that is coming up. On June the 11th, the Kentucky State Supreme Court hearing a case that has to do with Governor Beshear's emergency powers. Not these individual ones which he has done already. This court just invalidated all of those. This court case before the Kentucky Supreme Court has to do with three pieces of legislation that the Kentucky General Assembly passed this year, which would say the governor, if they declares a state of emergency, that can only exist for 30 days, and after that, it has to be approved by the legislature. And it just has to do with emergencies in general, not this particular one. So this case coming up would not be able to invalidate this ruling that we have just received. Absolutely all of his mandates have been thrown out the window. Now, I find it very interesting that within one day of the court case about all of his emergency powers and the legislation that would restrict his powers from this point on, he decided he's going to officially remove all the mandates the next day anyway. Now, why would he do that? I'll tell you exactly why he did this. I mentioned this a few weeks ago because he knows he was going to lose the case that I just referred to, and he also knows he's going to lose the case that's coming up. So he's trying to pull like a Hillary Clinton idea. Remember what Hillary did during the Benghazi trials? She had been found causing all of these problems. We'd had Americans who had repeatedly asked for help, for more security, for evacuation, and none ever came. And what did Hillary do? She banged her fist on the desk in front of Congress and said, what difference does it make now anyway? That's the exact same trick that Andy Beshear is trying to pull. Well, I was going to get rid of all the mandates this week anyway, so what does it matter? It matters a great deal because this ensures that you can't do this again in the future, sucker, because it's already been ruled illegal. And by the way, since the courts have now officially ruled that everything he did was illegal to begin with, every single person who lost their job, every single business owner that lost their business or suffered, I hope you personally sue Andy Beshear because nothing he ever did was legal to begin with, and he should be liable for all of these problems and anguish that he has caused. Well, let me tell you a little bit about this ruling. If you would like to read this ruling, then you just go to the description in this video. I have a link to it. I think it's about 30 pages long, a lot of legalese. Feel free to read it, but let me sum it up for you here. It starts off with making a list of the offenses that Andy Beshear has committed. If you actually read the Declaration of Independence, that's the same thing the Founding Fathers did against King George and all of his mandates. You ever read the Declaration? I believe it lists 26 offenses where King George had mandated this and decreed that, and they said, listen, we had enough of this. We're declaring war on you. Well, it's the same thing that happened in this case. Let me give you a list of few of the offenses that this court case cites. Notice the first one mentioned. It says he, referring to Andy Beshear, ordered the closure of churches and houses of worship. And of course, that is illegal. That is specifically protected under the Kentucky and federal constitutions. Listed another some of his offenses. It says the governor prohibited citizens from peaceably assembling for the purpose of petitioning a redress of those grievances, but allowed and even joined assemblies for other causes. Now, let's do a little review of this. So back in May of last year, May the 2nd, I held this big rally. We had 1,700 people show up. We called it the Kentucky Freedom Rally, saying we have a right to speak, and we took him to court, and Andy Beshear again had the courts rule against him on a second court case, saying you are violating the freedom of speech, the freedom for the redress of grievances, the freedom of assembly. And so that's a second case where he was found guilty of breaking the law. So don't let anybody tell you, Andy Beshear, you just had policy differences and he didn't break the law. I've already cited 2 separate court cases that said he did break the law. There was a court case in November of last year where the Kentucky Supreme Court said, well, what Andy's doing is legal. Keep this in mind. The Kentucky Supreme Court did not handle those issues handled by those federal court cases. And so that's a separate issues they were dealing with. And even if that was the same issue, the Kentucky Supreme Court does not have the authority to override the federal cases. So yes, he is guilty of breaking the law on multiple occasions, and nothing was done as a repercussion for that. And then what else? It says that the governor went and joined other assemblies and protests. What is that referring to? Well, it's referring to this picture right here. Just a week or so after the Kentucky Freedom Rally, he went out and joined a BLM rally, and you'll see here he is holding hands with an elderly person, his mask pulled down. Aren't the elderly supposed to be the ones most susceptible to the virus? He's not social distancing. He's not wearing a mask, violating all of his mandates for other people. But he says, it's okay for me to be at a protest. It's okay for me not to wear a mask. It's okay for me not to social distance. But you freedom people, you're not allowed to do it. So again, the courts ruled what you are doing is illegal. But let's read some of the other offenses that they recount. They say he prohibited travel and decreed those daring to travel across state lines in violation of his order must quarantine for 14 days. There was yet another federal court case last year that said what you are doing is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It violates both the state and federal constitutions. And he was again in yet another federal court case, has been cited for breaking the law. When someone breaks the law, what do you call them? I think that's called a criminal. They've been found guilty now 4 times over in different court cases. It cites another one of his offenses. He ordered all citizens to remain at home unless engaged in a pursuit deemed by the government to be essential for life. I'm here to say if your job is what allows you to eat, to sleep indoors, to keep your house or your car, then every single job is essential. And how dare Andy Beshear say anybody's job is not? There's one more it says here. He ordered hospitals and doctors to cease providing any health care, including surgeries, thereby prohibiting the people from access to procedures such as cancer screenings, dental care, and physical therapy. That is huge. We had all kinds of people who had medical problems that could not get care because Andy Beshear ordered that to stop. Probably caused far more deaths than it actually prevented. So those are some of the offenses that were cited. And then, of course, in every court case, you'll have some expert witnesses to testify. I want to share with you some of these expert witnesses that are found in this ruling. The first one is this wonderful lady by the name of Dr. Mary Rutherford. Now, the Andy's attorneys, they wanted to say this lady's not qualified to be an expert, and they tried to have her banned from being able to testify. And isn't that something that we see the liberals do a lot? If I don't agree with you, if you even raise questions about what I'm decreeing, I'm going to ban you. You're not even be allowed to raise questions. That's why some weeks I'm on and some weeks I'm banned, because YouTube and Facebook don't even like people raising questions. Same thing with Andy's attorneys. However, the judge said, no, I think this person is qualified. Let me read you some of the qualifications of Dr. Mary Rutherford, who is an expert witness in this case. She is, first of all, a board-certified medical doctor. She earned her master's degree in public health at Johns Hopkins University, one of the most prestigious ones in the nation. She had worked with Dr. Fauci for 9 years. She had worked for years at the National Institute of Infectious Diseases and 3 years at the National Institute for Health. She is also the chairperson of the American Academy of Family Physicians right now. This means that Dr. Mary Rutherford is not only qualified, she is one of the absolute most qualified people in the entire planet to testify on this. Notice some of the testimony which is cited in this case from Dr. Rutherford. She said that she studied infection rates, hospitalization rates, and death rates of places that had strict restrictions because of COVID-19 and those who did nothing. And she said that lockdowns did nothing to stop infection rates, hospitalizations, or mortality rates, the number of people who all died from COVID-19. All these things the government did zero to impact the spread of the virus. She goes on to say that lockdowns were, quote, superfluous and ineffective, end quote. So this is one of the most qualified people in the entire world saying these lockdowns did nothing to change the course of the virus. It actually hurt more than it ever helped. But she was not the only expert. Let me give you one more. This is Mr. Stephen Petty, and he is a certified industrial hygienist. His job is to make sure that infectious diseases and other things are not in the workplace, and he's doing with the specific things to help protect against that. He holds 9 patents on personal protective equipment. We heard that term a lot, PPE, personal protective equipment. He has been the expert witness in more than 400 court cases that have to deal with infectious diseases. So this is, and the other side didn't even try to decertify him. They're like, yeah, he's an expert. Notice what his expert testimony says, quote, the 6-foot distancing rule and mask mandates are wholly ineffective at reducing the spread of the virus, end quote. He's like, this 6-foot rule did absolutely nothing. He said wholly ineffective, completely, totally. The idea that I'm going to die at 6 feet, but at 6.5 or 7 feet, I'm fine. I mean, that didn't even pass the common sense test. He goes on to say this, again, absolute expert that even Andy Beshear's attorneys agreed, yes, he is a super qualified expert. He said this in the case, and you can read it for yourself, quote, masks are worthless because they are not capable of anything as small as COVID-19 aerosols. Masks do not even qualify as PPE, end quote. Something that I've been talking about, and several other liberty-minded people for a year and a half now, saying that the little particles of COVID-19 pass right through a mask, they're not respirators, and it does absolutely nothing, which is why I repeatedly will show different mask manufacturers, and they put right on their box saying this will do nothing to help prevent COVID-19. Doesn't help you, doesn't help anybody else. Let me give you one more quote from this expert, quote, mask wearing provides no benefit whatsoever, either to the wearer or others, end quote. You can read all of this on page 17 of this 30-page ruling. So we have here the experts saying, listen, social distancing did nothing. Mask wearing did nothing. And they go on to cite states like Florida and South Dakota that either didn't shut down or opened up a lot quicker than we did, and that with none of the lockdowns like we had, and their numbers are actually better than Kentucky's with all of those restrictive lockdowns and mandates. All of these things did nothing. In fact, it made it worse. Sweet, sweet vindication. Oh, happy day. I do want to give you a little bit of bonus information this week, and that is about vaccinations. I'm getting a lot of people around Kentucky asking me, my school is saying I have to take it. They're mandating it. My employer is saying I'm required to take, I'm mandated to take the vaccine, or they're going to fire me, lay me off, whatever. That is illegal. Number one, Senate Bill 8, which was passed into law this year in Kentucky, specifically bans any institute of Kentucky, that would include public schools, from mandating the vaccine. So if you don't want to, all you have to do is say, hey, I don't want my kid to get it, and any government institution is specifically forbidden in Kentucky from mandating this. After all, because it is experimental. And that is why also there is a specific federal law which forbids anyone, whether it's a government institution or a private institution or company, a school, it forbids anyone from mandating or requiring you to take an experimental vaccination, an experimental treatment at all. And if they fire you because of this or forbid you from going to school, you can sue the pants off of these people. The Liberty Counsel is a legal firm which has been doing this across the country with great success. And of course, the liberal media doesn't want to let you know that that is happening. And if you're curious about what this law is, it is U.S. Code, Title 21, Chapter 9, Subsection V, Part E, Subsection 360BBB-3. And I have a link to this U.S. federal law in the description of this video. How's that for documentation for you? So, Andy Besehar, everything you ever done is illegal. You don't have to take the vaccination. Your kid doesn't have to. And if anybody says you do, sue the pants off of them. And one last thing before we leave today is I am going to be hosting what I call the Great Kentucky Shootout and Picnic. It's going to be held on June the 26th, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern at the Sugar Creek Gun Range, 1033 Perry Rogers Road in Lancaster, Kentucky. We're going to have some live music. We're going to have prizes. We've been sponsored by Op Supply, Sugar Creek Range, and Mingua Beef Jerky. They're going to have all kinds of prizes, raffles, gift certificates for the winners of the shootout. The event is free. If you want to enter the shootout contest, that's $20 per shooter, but you just come out to the event itself is free. Kids, bring your super soakers. We're going to have a great time doing this. So that's the Great Kentucky Shootout and Picnic, June the 26th in Lancaster, Kentucky. Come on out, bring your family, bring a picnic lunch, bring some friends. We're going to have a great time enjoying our Second Amendment rights. And before we sign off today, I want to tell you about a change I'm making to the program. For the last year or so, I've ended the program with the words, stand strong and breathe free. Well, because of these rulings, we have been given victory and liberty over these mandates about breathing free. So now I get to change that. So until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point. Stand strong and remember, liberty is not a spectator sport.